this module, we will look at fire-protected timber. In the unlikely event of the automatic fire sprinkler system failing during a fire, the second level of protection under the new NCC requirements is the encasement of the structural timber elements using fire-grade plasterboard. In this presentation, we will examine the NCC provisions for fire-protected timber for both the general requirements covering lightweight timber systems and also massive timber systems. Let's start with the general requirements. The NCC defines fire-protected timber as fire-resisting timber building elements that comply with the new specification A1.1. Specification A1.1, clause 2.1, applies the following general requirements to fire-protected timber. In summary, the building element must be protected to achieve the required fire resistance level, or FRL, and have a non-combustible fire protective covering applied to the timber, which achieves a resistance to the incipient spread of fire of not less than 45 minutes when tested in accordance with AS 1530.4. In practice, this means 2 layers of 13mm fire-grade plasterboard. This configuration meets the non-combustibility requirement and also achieves the required FRL of the element, and the equivalent performance to an RISF of 45 minutes. So by example, the discontinuous timber frame wall system shown here, with 2 layers of 13mm fire protective grade plasterboard either side of a cavity between studs, could be classified as fire protected timber FRL 90-90-90, RISF 45, non-combustible. With massive timber systems, the NCC provides some concessions. The NCC permits a relaxation to the general requirements for fire-protective massive timber, providing both the following additional criteria are satisfied. The timber panel is at least 75mm thick, and any cavity between the surface of the timber and the fire-protective covering or between timber members is filled with non-combustible materials. It should be noted that this 75mm dimension relates to the minimum dimension of the dressed, finished timber member. In most instances, massive timber elements will have minimum dimensions much greater than 75mm to meet the structural adequacy and integrity criteria of AS 1530.4. The rationale for this concession for massive timber is that subject to maintaining the required FRL, the consequences of ignition of the timber structural members are significantly reduced because timber with a large cross-section can achieve high fire resistance levels due to the formation of a char layer. This protects the timber core, allowing it to continue to support an imposed load or maintain a fire-separating function for significant periods. Therefore, if there is an early failure of the fire-protective covering, the timber structure is likely to maintain its load-bearing capacity for a greater period than lightweight construction. And, by not permitting any concealed spaces between the timber members or between the timber and fire-protective coverings, the risk of fire spread through the concealed cavity is addressed. Specification A1.1, clause 2.2, applies the following requirements for fire-protected timber where massive timber is used. In summary, the building element must be protected to achieve the required FRL and have a non-combustible fire-protective covering applied to the timber, which achieves a modified resistance to the incipient spread of fire of not less than the values stated in Table 1, interface, temperature and minimum fire-protective grade plasterboard thickness. For massive timber, specification A1.1, clause 2.2, Table 1, deems 1 layer of 16mm fire protective grade plasterboard for all other applications achieves the required FRL of the element and an equivalent performance to an MRISF of 30 minutes. So by example, the massive timber wall system shown here with 1 layer of 16mm fire protective grade plasterboard either fixed directly to the massive timber element or including non-combustible insulation could be classified as fire protected timber FRL 90-90-90, MRISF 30, non-combustible. So in summary, fire-protected timber provides the second level of fire protection in the unlikely event of a sprinkler failure. The general requirements for lightweight timber wall systems specify that 2 layers of 13mm fire-protective grade plasterboard achieves the required FRL and an RISF of 45 minutes. For massive timber systems, generally 1 layer of 16mm fire-protective grade plasterboard achieves the required FRL and an MRISF of 30 minutes. For further information on wood and wood products, visit woodsolutions.com.au, the website for wood.